Yeah, it's like a Zoom call. Just turn it on.
Okay, we're live.
We're live. Oh. So yeah, I have no idea if this is working on my channels or not, but welcome everyone to the Shame on Woo Boston Mom protester interview. I have with me Shannon and Catherine. They were the two moms that were arrested for protesting outside Mayor Wu's house during COVID-19 lockdowns in defiance, absolute defiance of the ordinance that the mayor created with the town or the city of Boston, and especially targeting these two mothers and putting them on a hit list with a number of other people. So if you haven't heard of it yet, check the links in the description. There should be a couple articles there and some previous videos from when I went down to Boston to join them in defiance of their bail conditions, which said to stay away from Mayor Wu's house and not protest there, which they went and did anyways. And of course, the filming in Roxbury Court, West Roxbury District Court as well. But they went to trial. When was that? A week ago or so?
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday. And they were both found not guilty, pro se. So they fired their attorneys 2 weeks before the trial started, which is really completely unheard of. No one does that. Only a fool represents themselves in court, is what they tell us, right? But they were successful, and they were found not guilty on the charges for protesting outside Wu's house. So let's, I guess, start from the beginning. If each one of you wants to introduce yourselves, and then figure out who wants to start with what happened. How did it all begin?
Shannon, do you want to go first?
Catherine, do you want to start?
Sorry.
We weren't breaking up there. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit.
Shannon, do you want to start with the beginning?
Okay, so we were originally protesting outside of Mayor Michelle Wu's home because she passed vax mandates for the city workers, and she was implementing proof of vaccination in the restaurants and businesses in Boston. So she had a press conference. Was it December 2021, Catherine?
Yeah.
At City Hall, and we were there with a number of people, maybe 200 people, protesting her there. That's when Shame on Wu was first began, the chant. We were booing her, and we were inside the building where the press conference was happening. So anybody who wants to see that, she was announcing the vax mandate, and you can hear us in the background booing or saying Shame on Wu. So there was a 2-week time frame that people had to get their vaccination to keep their job. So what she did was she turned around and she closed City Hall for that duration of time, so that people that would be affected would not be able to go and speak in person or directly to the people that were making this change to their lives. So that's when we first went to her house to protest. And I wasn't even actually at the first protest, so maybe the second one.
So people started going there, and then how long did it take before they implemented the ordinance prohibiting? What was this ordinance prohibiting?
It's targeted picketing ordinance, and it's for a targeted residence. Although I've said I think it's targeted against us, the ordinance, right, because it was passed as a city ordinance, although we found out from some FOIAs that came back that this was actually a policy, a new policy regarding the mayor's house. So in terms of when it came about, Michelle Wu, the mayor, this was a self-serving ordinance. It was brought forth or proposed February 28th, and it was passed by the city council 1 month later, March 30th, signed in effect. And I wasn't there on April 1st, but the people that were there protesting April 1st found out that it was live. Catherine, were you there that day?
Yeah.
First. And you guys were told that it was live, but you were told that there wouldn't be a citation issued, right?
Not even necessarily. They just said, we're going to do things differently today. And then nothing really was different. They didn't give anybody a citation.
But what came in the mail for several people?
A summons to a clerk magistrate's hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after when?
I didn't
Which
get
one was
summons.
this?
So this was all very strange. So people showed up to protest April 1st. People came back and protested April 4th, knowing that the mandate of that the ordinance was in place, and that if we protested according to the ordinance, it's a civil ordinance. So you'd be issued a $50 fine if you were protesting. So what happened was we came because we wanted to challenge the ordinance. And we were instead those that protested on April 1st, and on April 4th, we got a criminal summons to the West Roxbury District Court. Some of us, it was very strange. They never asked us our names or addresses, but somehow they had it. And Catherine and I were scratching our head. We were trying to figure out how some people got summons and others didn't. It was very unclear how that whole thing was.
How many people got summons? And so this was prior to the arrest.
Right. So what they were doing was they were trying to predicate the arrest on this magistrate's hearing. So that would be before the magistrate, and this was us therefore being informed that should you protest after this, anticipate an arrest. And so we all referred back to the ordinance that said this is a civil ordinance, punishable by a ticket, a fine. So what he said to us was that they would be utilizing this law that if you willfully violate a city ordinance, it's a Massachusetts law, that they can't arrest you for it. So little did we know, we were still confused. We were trying to understand. You just passed an ordinance to restrict protesting, limit the hours of protest from, you'd be allowed to protest between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., shrink the First Amendment down to 12 hours per their timetable, their schedule. We were trying to understand, why are they bringing in this law? Why, how, it didn't make sense. It's the First Amendment. It's a protected right. It can't be turned into a privilege, and it can't be criminalized. What's going on here? So what came to light was through a FOIA that the police department was working behind the scenes trying to figure out how to arrest us, because we hadn't done anything all this time that would cause any arrest. So they were trying to get crafty on their side to just figure out how to get us to stop protesting.
And so they never, obviously this ordinance came about because of the protests. And there's also emails showing that it was to protect Wu's house, as you mentioned earlier, which you guys had big blown up copies of the emails at the protest linked in the description, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they never used it on a non-politician's house or anything like that, right?
No, they didn't. And they also didn't use it at any other politician's house besides hers, because we tested it. We went to at least 3 other elected officials' homes in Boston and violated the ordinance, and it was never enforced anywhere else.
Interesting. Okay, so let's jump to the arrest. So you guys do all this stuff. They create the ordinance. There's different people going to the original ones, and Not everybody was there for all of them. This isn't some sort of organized group effort, is it? Is it more decentralized? How is that working? The
It was
protesting.
kind of just people just showed up when they felt like it. It wasn't like a group or an organization or anybody like organizing. It was
Nobody's
just
paying you guys to
showed
go
up
out
when they
there.
felt like it.
Right.
No.
So, all right. So it's organic, grassroots, so to speak, protesting. And what happened the day of the arrest?
So Shannon was arrested first by herself in April before the rest of us were arrested in June.
Okay.
So that came first, and she was charged with violating the ordinance, which is a civil infraction, and then also charged with a criminal offense of willful violation of a city ordinance, which is Massachusetts general law. And that was thrown out and ruled an unlawful arrest by a judge. So after that happened, we thought we were good to go back. Like, good, now let's go back and get fines, because still, as of June 2022, this ordinance has been in effect since April. Nobody has gotten a fine. One person got arrested, but the judge threw it out and said that it wasn't warranted at all. So let's go back and get a fine now, because we're trying to challenge this thing. And so 4 of us went and protested. A couple people were there with cameras, and all 4 of us got arrested.
So, okay. And for what? What did you got? What led up to the arrest, if anything? Like, what happened?
We were just singing a song, basically, banging on a cooking pot and doing our chants of shame on Woo and fuck your ordinance and free speech is not a crime. Because at this point we weren't even protesting the vaccine mandates anymore. It was about the ordinance that day.
Right.
And so the 4 of us got arrested. We were charged with the civil infraction of violating the ordinance, and then we were charged with disturbing the peace, which is a criminal offense.
But
Okay. Yeah.
4 of us
But
are arrested, but
the other 2 girls' names are not on the hit list that we mentioned earlier. So their cases got dismissed almost immediately.
Interesting. So their cases get dismissed pretty quickly. What was that? Within like 30 days or 60 days, or within the short period?
Prior to arraignment, they weren't arraigned.
So they weren't even arraigned. And then you guys have your charges still. And then what happened with that? Did they give you guys counsel? Did you get representation?
right.
So we had our first attorney who we knew him just because he was also representing other people that we know that have done similar protests and stuff like that. And he represented us for what?
6
The
months.
first 6 months, maybe?
Yeah.
And then he just left. He quit on us.
No reason, conflict of interest, something.
I don't know, but prior to him leaving quickly, Catherine, what was that document that he filed that we saw in the court record? Do you remember the name of it? That we
A notice of prosecutorial misconduct.
Right. So he put the court on notice for misconduct. All of a sudden, he got weird and disappeared. So we don't know.
And also tried to file a temporary restraining order on the ordinance being enforced. And we have like nothing, there was never any discussion or like we have no idea what happened with those documents that nobody ever responded to them. They were never discussed in the hearings. The documents were filed, and then the lawyer was gone, and nobody ever talked about those documents again.
So he withdrew from the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
And then what happened?
We got new counsel. I think you guys were familiar in New Hampshire with the same attorney.
Inspector Gadget? I just said it. I said it. I'm just kidding, Jens. You're good. You're good. So for people who are familiar with my channel, obviously the New Hampshire 9 arrests with Therese Grinnell and the first saying amen, and myself and the 7 other individuals who were arrested at the executive council meeting in New Hampshire by Governor Sununu. Very similar situation, even prior to that, because I had been organizing the protests outside Governor Sununu's house, and they did a similar ordinance in the town of Newfields. His brother was actually on the board of the town of Newfields, and if you guys haven't seen those, there's playlists there, and Jens represented us on the New Hampshire 9 arrests. So he was all of our lawyers, and I ended up firing him myself, going pro se, coincidentally, and having a 5-day, 13-hour trial where I was ultimately successful and was found not guilty on 3 of the 4 charges. One of them's on appeal. But similar in that respect that we had the same lawyer, attorney Jens. So how did you guys get connected with Jens?
So we were familiar with him because during 2020, when there were freedom events and things like that, he would come out to those. So I was already familiar with him from that. I think Catherine, the same, right?
Yeah, and because he was representing Dave Blondin, the gym owner.
Okay. So you had 6 months with the one lawyer, and then, how long? I know this process took how long from beginning to end?
2 years.
750 days.
750 days. So you had the lawyer for 6 months, then you get Jens, and what happened with the representation with Jens and all that?
So he was pursuing a claim or trying to dismiss on the grounds of selective prosecution. And do you remember, Catherine, how many cases, how many examples he had?
It was almost 300.
So he had like 300 cases of protests, people that were arrested for various activities that they were deemed protest arrest. Many of those, as you know, not protests, whether it was punching out a police officer, blocking streets of traffic, vandalizing, setting fire, looting, things like that, called protest.
Right.
Immediately dismissed before arraignment, right? So versus
some of them.
Some of them, they got community service. I think, what did he say? Only a couple of them that were the most actually.
He broke it down in the motion and the supporting memorandums. He broke it down to exactly what happened with all of those almost 300 cases, and those cases were from 2020 to now. But the thing is, absolutely nobody on that list was prosecuted like we were. None of them, and those are all leftist type,
right?
Issues that they were protesting.
Yeah. So
I mean, not necessarily Antifa, but a lot of them probably. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, climate people, Palestine people.
Extreme leftist terrorists. Communists, Marxists. I mean, there's crazy ones on the right too. So don't get me wrong. Everybody knows wings of the same vulture. The Republican Party and the Democrats, they work hand in hand. They got the same puppet masters behind them, AIPAC and Israel and all that. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But so yeah, they were letting these leftist type extremists get away with an insurrection throughout COVID. They were mostly it was a mostly peaceful insurrection across the country. Violence, actual violence, robbing, stealing, all that. And then they target you guys, women, for banging pots and pans.
So it wasn't that I was just like banging a pot. I was keeping time to the song. I just want to make it musical.
Listen, the subtitles on YouTube say music and applause. So,
yes. So when we're singing, it says music, and when I'm banging the pot, it says applause. That's pretty much right there.
I respect it. No, it's cool.
I mean, it was a very boring protest. It was.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do. There's a lot of dead space there. You got to keep people motivated, and it's not supposed to be nice, right? These protests, when somebody's got their boot on your neck, you know, what are you supposed to? Oh, excuse me, would you mind getting that boot off my neck, please? That's not how it works, right? So, anyhow, they're trying to suppress everybody.
I do have the video.
Yep.
Can
you have the video?
Do you want to just play a little piece of it?
Let's play the video.
It's very boring, I'm telling you. It's nothing exciting.
Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime.
In 21, the call came from the police. Reported to be a man down near the bus area.
You got a scanner?
Yeah, I got a couple of them. Got a little bit of everything going on. I guess they're giving her a wake-up call.
So, yeah, I don't want to bore you for 15 minutes of it. But
I mean, mine aren't that much better. I'm telling you, I was arrested right after. So I was arrested out front of Sununu's for singing COVID carols with a bunch of people, and I was the only one arrested at that one.
We wanted to do that. We had plans to do something like that. It never happened.
Well, we have the COVID carols. Somebody, I don't know, is a Free Stater person who made them. They're actually pretty funny, and they're really good. We had a whole list of COVID carols that we went through. And I was arrested and targeted out of everyone that was there. We all wanted tickets, but then they only gave me a ticket. But so that was terrifying. That video was frightening. I'm sure the people were scared for their lives there. And so that was the one where you guys were arrested?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can fast forward to that part if you want to watch it.
Yeah, let's see the arrest if you got them handy, because people are gonna go, why didn't you show the arrest? You clip that out. They probably had guns.
Ordinance, fuck your 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 ordinance.
It's getting intense.
I thought it was a judge.
judge.
You can be arrested.
It doesn't say anything like that inside.
Well, I'm telling you, you can be arrested. If you don't, you're going to be arrested. Ask her if she knows. Okay?
Ask me, I'm here, and the judge
Five
dismissed
minutes.
it. What are you doing?
I'm going to watch this again. If you don't leave.
Okay, judge. Call the 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 judge.
The judge was in on it. Huh?
The judge was in on it, meanwhile.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Call the judge. Call the judge.
Crime. Free speech.
It's not a crime. Free speech is 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 not a crime. Why is that speech
You're in
protected?
violation of the city ordinance.
Okay. Free speech is
I
not
gave
a
you enough
crime.
time to this person. You understand it?
You're targeting. You're
As long as
targeting
you know that you're
a
violating.
group of individuals.
Right.
There were hundreds of people with megaphones in the streets of Boston over the weekend. Nobody said anything.
No, here's what I wanna say. No, as long as you understand.
Fuck your ordinance. 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 Fuck your
Oh,
ordinance.
back up.
Fuck your ordinance. 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 Fuck your ordinance.
Didn't speed up to the rescue.
Fuck your ordinance. Fuck your ordinance. Fuck your ordinance.
What'd you say?
Speed up to the arrest part.
Yeah.
It's not a crime.
Free speech is not a crime.
Oh.
Free speech is not a crime.
Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. Free speech is not a crime. If I leave it on the ground, can you take it?
What? You won't be here at night.
It's evidence.
He wants to come back and deliberately bother the neighbors and not weird.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
I guess he doesn't know. You're all going, right, Touch? All four of them going. She'll be going to us.
With the rubber gloves.
She is pressed.
She's not pressed.
She is pressed. She is. How you gonna tell someone's not pressed?
Right, that's the problem. You should not go
You should know who people are. If you don't know who they are, leave them alone. That's what you should do. If they're not bothering you, you should leave them alone. Freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of everything else.
Okay, all right.
First Amendment. It's all First Amendment. She's pressed. Everybody's, sir, just so you know, everybody's pressed. There's no such thing as a press pass, sir, just so you know.
If you're staying out here, you're going to be arrested.
That's a threat of arrest, so you cannot. Sir, I've been recording her all the time. She has not been protesting.
And I know her.
But I don't care if you know her or not. She's not protesting. She's not protesting, sir.
She's on
Yeah,
the
I know you
target
don't like the truth.
list.
That's true. I know.
Exactly.
Is it a 24-hour status?
She has not been protesting since she's been out here, sir.
You're so incompetent. You blow my mind every
All
time.
right.
Seriously.
You blow my mind.
You
need to read the Constitution.
You need to read the Constitution. You really need
I
to.
know the Constitution.
So do you respect the Constitution?
What is the First Amendment?
You understand?
They don't know it.
You don't know the First Amendment. You don't know.
Free speech.
Free speech.
What else?
Everything
Right.
else. I'm
What
not
else?
arguing all-
Everything else.
I know what it
What
is.
else is?
All of it.
Free speech and everything else.
All of it. Jeez. Unbelievable. I
But
mean,
so-
my viewers are familiar with that line of reasoning from law enforcement. They don't know the rules. They don't know the Constitution. They don't know the 5 elements of the Constitution, First Amendment of the Constitution. It's very scary when law enforcement can't articulate themselves like they're supposed to.
I just want to say that probably one of the hardest parts about the trial was having to sit through that 15-minute video and not smile or laugh.
It was entertaining, and I gotta say there was definitely a lot of rhythm there and some some harmony going on. So definitely a lot better than the protests I had going on. That's for sure. And somebody asked about with the pot. Did you get the pot back? Did they confiscate it as like a deadly weapon or something? Implements of the First Amendment? I don't know.
We have the pot. We have the pot.
The pot is back. Okay,
My
good. You're gonna
husband
have
has wanted to throw it back. It's still here.
no. You gotta like plate it in bronze or something like that. Turn it into a statue, for sure. Maybe auction it off, sign it. I don't know. Put a certificate of authenticity and put it on eBay. So somebody would want it. Trust me. But all right. So that was interesting. And so they arrest you guys, and what happened? What?
Hashtag freedom pot.
Freedom pot. I know pot's illegal. Didn't you know that? Pot's illegal. Free the pot. Unbelievable. So they arrested you, 4 of you, and what was that process like? Because that might get glossed over, but what was that process of the arrest like?
Catherine, I wish you had the video ready, the body worn camera when they brought us out of the
I can
paddy
look
wagon.
for it while you're talking about it if you want.
Okay.
Or if you can share the link to, where can people see that?
Well, it's not posted online yet because it was evidence that we had, so nobody has seen it
We
outside
just
of the
received
parties
it
of the case.
last week.
Oh.
First time we ever saw it in our life.
Okay.
You know, the same thing that they do to anyone they arrest is they brought us into the station. Yeah, you saw we were handcuffed, thrown in the back of the paddy wagon, and, processed, photographed, fingers prying, doing the search, searching our bodies, our bags, everything. And they put us in 2 separate cells. The fingerprints.
Not like it's a felony arrest or anything. I mean,
right. So we had a problem with all of this, but particularly when they transferred us to the court, when we're getting out of the paddy wagon, I had already fought the first time I was arrested, them putting shackles on me. It said, don't put shackles on me. I was holding a sign. I'm not putting those shackles on. They shackled me anyway, as I was arguing and fighting against it. So one of the police officers that arrested me with these ladies said to me, he had been there the first time in April when I was arrested. He said, yeah, I was there last time. Yeah, that's just the way it is. It's a policy. Everybody gets the shackles. And I said, I'm not being shackled, dude. And we're not just accepting things as that's just the way it is. If it's unacceptable, it needs to go, right? So we were taken out of the paddy wagon, brought into the bottom of the court where they have the jail cells down there. And they loaded the 4 of us women into this small, tiny little cell. And we're sitting down, and these male court officers are coming in, standing up, looming over us. And Catherine and I were saying, we do not consent. We're not being shackled. Don't put those on us. Don't come near us with those things. And it was like a whole thing where they were shouting at us. They were trying to intimidate and scare us. It was very scary, because you're already in handcuffs. There's no need for a man to be shouting, let alone multiple of them. And we just found out with the body cam that they were gestured to the Boston police to turn off the body cam because they were about to, scare the ladies, try to force us into defiance. You do have it?
Yeah. The sound doesn't come on until like 30 seconds.
Well, we can't speak up about the court policy. Our policy with the court is out of our hands.
But they treat people like this. There was no crime committed.
Hey, Bobby, you're not, you're there, you're in custody.
It's a misdemeanor, non-violent.
Come down. Relax, relax. It's a policy.
Relax.
The person in custody puts these on.
I don't
Okay,
care.
until the boss said,
That has nothing to do with me.
you're in custody. That's why you're handcuffed.
Come on, ladies, you agree with us.
That's why you want to see the judge. If the boss comes down here,
Because I'm in.
So that
That's-
black guy that you see,
That's well,
Walk
so
them
he's
up.
covering the audio. He's covering the microphone on his camera, correct?
Well, that's
Intentionally.
the
he
right.
completely stopped the camera because that guy walked up.
They were told to.
That was it right there. Oh, so that's him shutting it off.
That's it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't see them shouting at us and trying to scare us into compliance.
Gotcha.
So with these two men shouting at us, right? It's like reverberating the sound down the hallway. So it sounds like all holy hell in there. So then the chief comes in and tells them to unlock the other two and says it's fine. They don't have to have the shackles on. So we put up a fight about
And
it.
it's-
You can't see.
So this is the other guy's camera,
Because I'm innocent until proven guilty.
and he does the same thing. He's like, "Shut that off," and then he starts yelling at us.
So this guy, this big guy, bald guy here, he seemed to have gave them the signal to shut off
Mhm.
the cameras, right?
Yeah,
Yep. And you see, they were both just so happy to jump in line with the command that they were given.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it made quite the scene. A lot of noise with these two men shouting at us, and that's when whoever they report to came down and said to take the shackles off. That it was fine. I mean, it wasn't fine. No part of it was
well,
fine.
not the
Nothing
shackles on.
about it.
They never got the shackles on us.
It's not like they were holding you, and they can't even jail you. So to act like they need to shackle you for a civil violation is absurd.
Yeah,
But it's disgusting. This is the degradation that this system does. So you come in here and you're made to feel completely low, like nothing, right? Innocent until proven guilty, right? And we're free from having to be face any cruel or unusual punishment for the Constitution. And then this is what they do: is they get people in here, they lock them behind bars. It's cruel, it's unusual, it's torture, and
They shut their cameras off. I mean, a lot worse things happen on camera. I'm sure, I'm assuming the two of you have seen some footage of cops killing people. And I know people who watch my channel have, and it's, what do they do off camera? If they're willing to do that on camera, what do these people do off camera? It's
Right.
unbelievable.
Right. But you heard the one Boston cop say, "Ladies, you're so good with us, ladies.
Mhm.
Just go along with it, ladies."
Yeah. It's good.
No,
The good cop, bad cop thing. Oh, it's rewarding you, trying to say, but you were doing good before.
So
If the
good.
threats don't work, they'll try to use the,
It's gross. It's gross.
boost you up thing. It's disgusting. It's so all they want is comply. They get off, meaning they are sexually aroused by these displays of power in these things that they do 100%. And those type of people who have that predilection are attracted to that type of power that allows them to do that. 100%. And the ones that aren't like that get into that profession, they turn a blind eye to it. So they're just as complicit and guilty. They're even worse, because I'm assuming, and I would hope that the good ones outnumber the bad ones, but it doesn't seem like they're willing to, they feel the confidence to stand up.
I feel like the two that stood by felt like they're good ones,
Right.
Turn off your
until the big guy comes and says, "Shut your cameras off. Don't worry, we're gonna take care
They're
of
like
this."
quick to do it, you know.
Right. Yep. They should have left it on and been like, "Well, no, that's against policy," just because even though the supervisor says turn it off, that's not how it works. They can only turn it off once the encounter is over with. You know, that's it. That's not when they get the order to cover it all up. But anyways, so that was all right. It's so they did that, and then what else happened of note through that process?
So we had this attorney that had just tried, he had just come on helping us with our prior. Catherine was arrested outside of City Hall protesting the same mayor. So she was outside the building blowing a whistle when she got assaulted by 2 Boston police officers, and she got charged with assault on the police. So we each had this attorney already. So he showed up and he came right down to tell us that they're letting me out. Yeah. So he came to the cell and said, hey, they're letting the other 2 go, but they're coming after you. So he let us know that that was the case. So we knew the minute that we had been, you know, transferred before we even went upstairs to see the judge that we were being treated different than the other 2 ladies that were participating and doing the same activity, you know.
So they let the 2 ladies go, and then so they brought you to the court that day because I guess it was early enough. So they processed you right then that day, and they charged you. And no bail. They didn't give you a bail, the PR or whatever.
This was funny because do you want to talk about the
yeah well, you know, they released us on personal recognizances, but you know, they have conditions of release that you're supposed to sign, and we refused to sign it. So the woman who was like tasked with having us sign the paper, when we refused to sign it, she like tried to get us to come back. Like she tried to lock us back in the cell because we wouldn't sign the paper.
So this is the point. Like nobody refused.
This is a court officer. It's like,
So
no. If you don't sign this, I have to put you back in handcuffs. Like what?
So they've, I guess, never had anybody refuse to sign. I mean, to us, it wasn't valid. They told us that we couldn't get arrested again. We can't protest without getting arrested. Like, how do we know what's going to cause an arrest, right? Anymore.
Right.
And then they said that we couldn't return to her house. And as far as we understood, that was wrong too, right? Because essentially it's almost giving like a restraining order without any, you know, cause. But
exactly. They did the same thing, but they did the same thing to me in the 9 with our arrest. They said we had to stay 1,000 feet away from the governor and the executive council and anywhere they may be. And that was obviously excessive. And at that, I said, no, I'm not signing that. And if you're arrested for a non-jailable offense and then they're going to give you PR bail because they have to, they can't give you more than that, right? They can't hold you. So if you don't comply and sign or pay, here in New Hampshire, there's like I want to say it's a $40 bail commissioner fee to pay to get out. If you refuse to pay that fee, they have to let you out anyway. And most people don't know that. And even the bail commissioners, it never very rarely happens. And so they're not used to it either, and they don't know how to handle it.
so I said, I'm not signing. It's not, I don't agree with it. And then Catherine was like, what are you doing? Like, you're not putting us back in handcuffs, you know? So we came up to the court again and went in front of the judge who put these stupid, you know, restrictions on us, and probation let them know, I guess it was probation, they're not signing. So he called us up and we stood there and he said, you refused to sign. And we said, right. And he said, okay, well, the conditions still stand. So
you're not agreeing to them though, right? So then it's It's such a joke. The whole thing. Oh wow, the conditions still stand. So,
Right.
oh, really? So the conditions still stand. You're not allowed to go near her house, Mayor Wu, and they let you out eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that day they let you out. And then what happens? The lawyer, you got the first lawyer, obviously, which he got him for 30 days. Then you had, or what? 6 months.
6 months.
6 months, sorry. So you had the first lawyer for 6 months. He kind of just vanishes. And then how long until you guys got Jens?
Oh, right away, right?
Yeah, I feel like he knew that we needed counsel. He said
How did he know? I'm just curious.
Well, he was kind of always concerned because this attorney that we were using was a new attorney. And so he was kind of like, there are sayings about new attorneys. You don't go to somebody new to cut your hair and you don't use
And also,
attorney.
yeah, and also like, oh, hey guys, like if it doesn't work out with him, like you know that I'm here, like I'll help.
So
yeah, I don't want to speculate on that, but it's interesting.
All right. Well, maybe tell me about it later.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to accuse Jens or anything, but I don't trust nobody. Okay, obviously, and it's just coincidental, and I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in the law of cause and effect. It's coincidental that this guy just disappears without saying anything to you, and then he's like, "Oh, hey," and he had already been trying to, say, "Oh, if things don't work out," So maybe did he talk to the guy? Did he talk to some other guy? They're all court officers. Let's switch to who knows? I don't know, but I don't trust none of them. They're court officers, right? Their job is to make it easy on the court, and we've seen that, right?
That's what we need to talk about. The bar attorney's job is to make it easy on the court to prosecute and to plea bargain everybody. The stats.
They're officers of the court. Yep. They're just like a bailiff.
Right.
Right. They're right on par. They're on that side of the team. Even the ones you hire yourself and pay for. Right.
Right.
They are going to, especially if you pay them a lot of money, you can basically buy your way. There's 2-tiered justice system. You can buy your way out. It's probably really 3-tiered. There's the low socioeconomic people who can't afford lawyers. Then there are the mid-level ones. If you can afford a halfway decent lawyer, can get you a better deal. And then you got the high-paid lawyers that people like Ghislaine Maxwell use to buy houses for cash in New Hampshire and hide out amongst their, child molesting crony political friends. So there's those 3 tiers, and who knows, maybe. And then there's the other tier that they're diplomatic immunity. They get pulled over and they get recognized and let go or whatever, however all that stuff works. But yeah, it's total corruption. And so you guys got Jens, and he pro se, he took it on pro se.
Pro bono.
Pro bono. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, pro bono. So they didn't charge you anything either. And then so why did you guys fire him? This is getting right up to the trial point. So for everybody who's watching. So you guys fired him 2 weeks before the trial, which I didn't tell you to do that, did I? I don't remember if I did.
No.
Okay, making sure.
So, I think that we both kind of have our own reasons. Mine, for the most part, is what I always say about every situation, because I also went through 4 lawyers with my DCF, like Child Protective Services case a couple years ago or last year. And then I end up representing myself there too. An attorney at the end of the day has a license that is at risk if they push too hard back on the government. So no matter what, they're not going to go to bat for you. As much as they may seem like it, the only person that's going to fight for you is you. So, you know, for me, it was mostly that, just like, I don't trust that. I mean, not even necessarily that I don't trust him, just that I don't trust that any lawyer, any bar attorney is going to represent me the way that I need to be represented because they have a license on the line.
No, I agree with that. And it's nothing personal against Jens either, why I fired him. It had nothing to do with him per se. But like you said, I feel the same way. Like, no one is going to represent me better than me. And then I have nobody else to blame. Like, if I get found guilty, it's my fault.
Right.
If I get found not guilty, it's my fault. Nobody's going to take credit for it, even though people tried to give credit to Jens for me representing myself pro se and then getting the other eight charges dropped. You know, it
Right.
was
And then
Jens.
not to mention the fact that, I mean, I don't really know how it is in New Hampshire, but in Massachusetts, you're literally not allowed to speak at all in the courtroom
Right.
if you have a lawyer. So if we tried to correct something that our lawyer wasn't correcting, we were getting threatened with contempt, being held in contempt.
Ridiculous.
So,
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that the lawyers, when you do, like, you're not supposed to speak out, but if you say, hey, you know, this, they're supposed to go, okay, yeah, boom, right? And they're supposed to drop it. But then they say, oh, well, I didn't think that was a good argument. I didn't. No, well, no, I'm telling you, you're representing me. This is how you're supposed to do it. But they want to act like they know everything and they got it all figured out, when most of them, they come on there and they're like, oh, yeah, they got the file and they're just looking through it. So let me see your file real quick. Hold on a second. Oh, yeah, so I see it's the first time they looked at the damn file and they never do anything they were supposed to do. Like, you know, Jen said he was going to do press releases at every point of the case.
Yeah.
And then never did a single friggin' press release. Not one. Okay. Oh, let's wait till the next point of the case. This isn't an important part of the case. It's all an important part of the damn case. We're talking about stuff that's being orchestrated by the mayor, the governor,
Yes.
and the state police,
Right.
to target people. And it's the same guy acting like it's no big deal. Anyway, it's just why I'm like, you know, my conspiracy wheels are turning, and I don't trust nobody. I don't trust any of these politicians, these lawyers, the judges. They're all suspect.
It's valid. It's valid. There was collusion, like in Massachusetts, as you're saying. Roman just said that it's the same in New York. So what had come out with the FOIAs, these record requests show that the Boston police were coordinating with the court, with the DA's office. You know, we were on the Boston mayor's enemy list, Mayor Wu's enemy list. And also the Boston police had a master list of protesters. And we're still trying to figure out how we didn't get this discovery that we're supposed to get the master list of protesters. So it's like we were strung along for months when Bill Gantz said that he was going to get that list. And then after a couple of months in court, where's the list? Why aren't they compelled to give the discovery? And it became, oh, we don't need the list.
Right.
But we were told, that was like the carrot. Like, we were told, where are you going to get the list? I never thought for a second that they would willingly give over the master list of protesters. They never should have been collecting names, information on people engaged in a constitutionally protected right. So it was just a very long, a drawn out, it's the, what do they say? The process is the punishment. That's what it was, you know?
How many continuances were there and stuff on things?
I mean, we were in court for 750 days. We were there 20 times, counting the 2 days, the two days for trial.
So what, in 25 months, we were
Almost
there 20
once
times.
a month. Almost once a month. So like,
So we had verbalized to the court. We had said, we're two moms. We have small children. This is an undue hardship to us. This needs to end. And it didn't matter, you know.
were they trying to get you guys to plea out?
No,
Well,
they didn't.
I think they knew our character the whole time. That just wasn't ever going to be a consideration. But it was always said to us by Attorney Gens that they're not trying to give you a deal, and and we don't want one. So
yeah, they were dragging it out and all that. It's so very interesting how this works, and I think this is helpful to people. I know some people have obviously experienced this stuff, but many people are unaware of these things that happen. And so you fire Jens 2 weeks before the trial, and then you guys go pro se. And what was your plan?
okay, so I feel like we had a disconnect on that too, because while we both were in agreement, there's no way you can learn to be a lawyer in 2 weeks or less, right? So I think we were not exactly sure if we were just going to go and see what they were planning to do. There was like such short notice in such a short span of time to really be able to get your legs under you. I think we just kind of we're not really sure what we were going to do. So what ended up was we were in there very frazzled, right? We had very little sleep trying to figure out what we had to do. And the time frames, there weren't any set time frames. So when do we give them anything and what do we have to give? And Catherine ended up in the court presenting to a judge who told her we couldn't compel witnesses for our defense because it wasn't enough time. But there's no time frame or time limit that we're expected to fulfill. So again, it's like everything's arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
And then
they did the same thing. They make up these things. It doesn't apply if the state misses a deadline for things. It doesn't matter. It's okay. Oh, well, those are just the recommendations. But then when it's up to us, we're going to have warrants out for our arrest. We're going to have our things denied. Oh, it's too late to do that now. Oh, no, it's too late to do that now.
Yeah. So then we tried to file a motion to have a continuance for the court to give us a new trial date so that we could compel the witnesses. And that was a no. So
So they didn't allow you to have witnesses. Did they allow you any witnesses?
No, we were allowed to have the witnesses, like personal witnesses, like people that we knew that we could get.
Okay.
But what they denied was we had 8 people that we wanted to get subpoenas for. And so they denied those subpoenas, even though we even had a third party to serve them. We didn't even need, all we needed was a signature. We just needed the judge to sign off on it.
Yep. I couldn't get that either in my case. The same thing. Yeah. They would not sign off on the subpoenas for Governor Sununu, and whatever. So, yeah.
They would not give communications between the 2 former attorneys and the DA's office. They would not give that to us.
Very interesting. So you're filing these pretrial motions and they're getting denied. And then what happens?
We had to go to trial.
The trial started.
Boom.
Bring in the jury.
Out of the fat and into the fire. You guys are thrown to the wolves to fend for yourselves. And what'd you do?
So, luckily, there were not enough people in the jury pool on day 1. So we ran out of people. We needed to pick 7 jurors, which was 6 and 1 alternate. And we only got 5 on the first day. So the first day actually only lasted maybe like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And then we went to the second day. So luckily we had a little bit of a break in between. So we knew, on the second day, a better idea of what we were walking into. And day 2, we picked our last 2 jurors, and we started. Shannon, do you want to talk about the jurors at all, or like the
Oh.
process?
It was so fast. I don't know who was more confused, us or the jurors. You know, people were not sure what to do. So when we were had a chance to question the jurors, some of them didn't know. They thought they answered the question correctly, but it was kind of fast. So what they were doing to us to confuse us and to keep us disoriented also worked into the, yeah, it confused the jurors as well, the potential jurors. So they wanted to completely just keep us like completely confused and rush through it. But there were some jurors that were trying to kind of lay low. It was said that we were, and anybody in the Boston area that has heard the stories about the protesters outside of Mayor Wu's house would know that they were protesting the vaccine mandates. So it was in the questionnaire. If you have strong opinions about the COVID vaccine, if you have a role or you had a role implementing the vaccine or administering the vaccine. So there was somebody who was a nurse, and she did not raise her hand for either of those two different questions. And so here she was in front of us, and all we know is she's a nurse. So I just asked her, you know, oh, you're a nurse, but are you able to be impartial? Do you have strong opinions about the COVID vaccine? And I feel like she just kind of lost it at that point, because I don't know if it's because the unvaxxed breathed on her, you know, or what, but she just kind of had a whole confession just kind of bursting out of her, where she said, you know, I set up COVID vaccine clinics. I administered the COVID vaccine. And no,
Shannon goes, no, bye.
she's a liar, and she's trying to, you know, kind of sneak.
What did the judge say? You're excused?
Yeah, at that point she did, yeah.
Oh my God.
But the other thing that happened, which was pretty comical, was that they ran out of jurors because
on the first day.
Yes, because there were many people that don't like Michelle Wu and said that they have very strong feelings about her. And one guy said she's ruined the city. One girl, college-age girl, said, you know, yeah, I've received the vaccine, but I don't care about, you know, vaxxed or unvaxxed. She said, I have a problem with this mayor because she kicked homeless people. She took away their tents, you know. And one person was a police officer who would not feel like he would have sided with the police, but instead would have sided with us on this issue. So there were people that were, you know,
maybe that's true, but it's hard to believe.
But we had to come again to pick the jurors the second day. So I just want to say how thankful I am, because it restored my faith in humanity. I don't think that we were aware that there were other people in the Boston area that could look at something and not, I don't know, that I'm completely overwhelmed with, I was shocked. I'm still shocked, really.
Well, they like to call it what, the silent majority, but then there's the real silent, like 70% of people who don't get involved with politics. They don't care. They don't talk about it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. That's the real silent majority, is the 70% of people who don't even vote, right? And participate in any of that stuff. And so they're afraid to be like, put their views out there. They know about the cancel culture. They can get fired. They can, you know, people are terrified to put their real opinions out there because they see what happens when people do.
Right. So I think that we got the not guilty verdict because I think they felt for us. I think we were pushed into this. We had asked for a continuance. We asked for time to prepare, and it wasn't granted. So we proceeded with very little knowledge about the process. We did the best we could. I was shaking like a leaf for 2 days straight the entire time. And a brain fog, because just totally exhausted, trying to figure out what we needed to file, if there was any chance that any of our evidence would come in. How do we get a witness on the stand, and what do we do when, we are literally trying to figure it out in those 2 days.
I ended up putting myself on the stand.
Nice. Good. You always, for the most part, you really do want to do that. You want to testify and kind of cross-examining yourself in a way, but you're just you don't have to ask yourself questions. You just say whatever the hell you want to say, right?
Oh,
Well,
you would think so. You would think so.
That's what I did.
She would not let me say what I wanted to say.
No,
because what happened was during my opening statement that I had typed up and prepared, and I get nervous public speaking, so I'm reading from a piece of paper, and we weren't aware that she was going to give us a time limit on opening statements. So she tells us 5 minutes, and I'm like, can I have 8? And she's like, no. I'm like,
No.
okay. So now, first of all, I'm nervous because I need to rush. I need to read, but I also want to keep the jury engaged. So I'm trying to make eye contact with them and look up from the paper. And then I'm like, which parts am I going to have to skip over? Like, what's less important, that I'm not going to get to say. So I'm already like panicking because I'm being rushed. And then like halfway through, or not even halfway, maybe a third the way through, he starts objecting. And then the judge is telling me I can't say certain things. We're not allowed to talk about the ordinance. We're not allowed to we're not allowed to talk about the emails between the police officers conspiring to arrest us. So I'm just continuing to try to finish it, and I keep getting objected to the point where I actually started crying, and now I'm like sobbing. And she actually like was going to excuse me, and I was like, no, it's fine. I just have a little bit more. And I'm literally like whimpering, trying to get through my opening statement. And then she pulls us a sidebar, and she's like, listen, it's a great argument that you're making, okay? But it's an argument. It's not an opening statement. I'm like, I don't know the difference. And she's like, you can put yourself on the stand. She was like bribing me to get me on the stand, right?
Trying to get you to shut up. Well, that's the thing is,
she's like,
you don't know, so you use that to your benefit. Say whatever you want. Let them object. Keep going. That's my advice to people.
So, so she told me that I could get on the stand at the end and say whatever I wanted to say. I could say my whole opening statement. She literally said those words. So then at the end, when I did get on the stand to say my opening statement, I start reading from the paper, and then he objects that I'm reading a script.
Right. Of course.
Then she tells me to put the paper down. So I put the paper down.
This was great though, because she went from reading the paper to, it was great because you could see an actual connection. And I felt like there wasn't a dry eye left in the place because it was just genuine, and I think you don't have that when you have an attorney representing you,
Yeah, I put down the paper and I just looked at the jury, and the jury's like 2 feet away from me. They're so close to the witness stand. And I just looked at them and I'm like, I showed up to protest. I came after the end of the noise ordinance. We complied with the police request not to use megaphones. We weren't using megaphones. We didn't really want to disturb the neighbors. We just want to, redress our grievances to our government, which we have the right to do. That's what I was trying to do. And then Shannon tried to ask me a couple questions and got shut up the whole way through. And
what with objections?
Yeah. And then when the DA was asking me questions, he thought he really had me because he goes, he's like, in your testimony just now, didn't you say that protests are meant to be disruptive? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I said. And he's like, okay, so you went to Michelle Wu's house with the intention of being disruptive. And I said, I went to her house with the intention of expressing my First Amendment rights. And then he asked again. And I don't know why he gets to ask us the same question 3 times, but we were yelled at every time we repeated questions.
You got to object. That's the other tactic. Object to everything. And even if you don't know what you're objecting to, just that's what they do to try to throw you off your rhythm. And so that's what you want to use back on them. Be like, objection, irrelevant. And then I did that once. A judge was like, that was pretty relevant. And I was like, okay. So yeah, do the same thing to them.
Is that the judge cannot hold you to the same standard that they hold an attorney. The judge isn't supposed to get mad at you because you don't know what's going on.
So can we bring this point in as well, that it was like intentional punishment, because she would frequently say, you're the one that decided to get rid of your attorney. You're the one that decided to go pro se.
Yep.
And
so
then we'd ask her a question and she's like, I'm not your lawyer. I'm not here to teach you how this works.
So we just had to keep stepping in whatever that she was going to yell, and she was going to tell us we had to stop. So
yeah, and then
we did the best we could. And
we're at sidebar, and she's talking about something, and I go, well, we don't understand, and she goes, I know you don't understand.
Oh, nice. Was that the one that I talked to?
Catherine, she couldn't. Yes, she told Catherine she can't ask any more questions.
Yeah. Well.
So we were basically over it. We called a witness. They were objecting to that, shutting it down, not letting us ask any questions. I tried. I wanted to ask. The point was, what changed? When was the change? Did you notice between when the ordinance was passed and then what happened? But they wouldn't let us talk about anything. So they said, nobody can talk about the ordinance. It has to be just disturbing the peace. But at the same time, they didn't
want what they're trying to prohibit was evidence that would help in a civil suit is what they're trying to stop.
So what happened was they play the video where we're yelling, fuck your ordinance. They play the video where we're saying, he comes up and says, you're going to be arrested for violating the ordinance. The other woman said, why? It doesn't say that in the ordinance. So over and over and over again, you talk about ordinance, and now you're going to tell us we can't talk about ordinance. What are you talking about? Right?
Right.
Jury was probably sitting there like completely confused, right? So I think the more they tried to silence us, the more they tried to suppress us, the more they tried to keep out, the more reasonable doubt, right? They couldn't find us guilty. They didn't know what the heck was going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was driving it so that they would be forced to find us guilty, because that's another thing that they do, where they pick the law and they take it and they line it up so that when they're explaining to the jury, they're like, they were there.
Right. So the jury, when did the jury instructions come in? That comes in at the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now you guys tested. So just one of you testified. It's over. You did the closing statements, and what else happened? And then what happened with the verdict and all that? And the jury instructions.
Disturbing the peace is supposed to exclude, constitutionally protected exercise of your First Amendment right? This was never said in the case. So we wanted that in the jury instructions. We wanted the constitutional, information. So this judge found some kind of case law where instead of instructing them that disturbing the peace is to exclude protesting, she instead pulls out of a case law where somebody was honking a horn incessantly and bothering people. And his excuse had been that it was his First Amendment right to beep the horn. So the Supreme Court had said that there are restrictions on free speech. However,
he wasn't out in front of a politician's house, though, right?
We were holding protest signs and banners, and we were singing protest songs. So ours was very much protected speech. So again, all of the tricks and all of the twisting by the judge to try to force the jury to find us guilty, I'm amazed, and I'm beyond thankful and shocked that the jury came back the way they did. I don't know how long they deliberated. Was it maybe an hour and a half, Catherine, do you think?
Well, they had their first questions like 20 minutes in.
The question was
Did
they
they-
wanted to see the actual law, and she said no. And then their question was, right?
Did anybody ever get a fine for violating the ordinance?
And then she wanted to tell them, because I was asking that question of the witness, the one witness that we had on the stand, pretty much shut that whole thing down. I went to ask a fellow protester who was familiar with everything that had gone down, if anybody had received a ticket or a fine under the ordinance, and they struck that from, being asked. So here the jury came back and asked that question. And the answer is no one has ever received a fine or a citation under the ordinance. So she told them she gave them that information, but also said, you're not supposed to be thinking about or talking about the ordinance. So then
the ordinance, if I recall, said first offense fine, second offense arrest. So they probably put
Never
Yeah.
arrest.
third offense. No, never arrest.
First offense, a $50 fine. Second offense, $150. Third and subsequent, $300. It can never be a criminal charge.
Interesting. So, well, that's probably why they wanted to know. Did they have phones? Were they not allowed to Google search stuff?
Well, I don't think so, but we got the ordinance into evidence. So
Okay.
What's into evidence for them to talk about it. So I was able to put it up to the sergeant when he was on the stand to ask him to read the part where it says $50, $150, $300, and then I said,
okay.
So where's the part where it says arrest? There is no part, right?
Yeah.
And so then she interjects and said, don't ask him to read anything else, just ask him questions. So again, it was like all around censorship. They were restricting our evidence. They had already kept us from compelling witnesses for our defense, didn't accept any of our exhibits. So it's
the
like,
ordinance brought in
how do you know?
in the picture.
Are you sure?
What happened?
Yeah, they had a motion in limine from the beginning to exclude anything about the ordinance from being talked about or being entered in as evidence. Then when Shannon was cross-examining their witness, which was the sergeant who had us arrested, she tried to present to him the ordinance to have him read it. The judge pulled us a sidebar and said, I've told you a bunch of times, you can't use the ordinance. You can't talk about the ordinance. It can't go into evidence. Nothing. The charge for the ordinance is completely separate. This is about disturbing the peace. But this was right after the DA played his video of the protest where the ordinance is mentioned a bunch of times. So thankfully, I had just watched the Karen Reed trial and saw a similar thing like this happen. And so I said, wait, if nobody's supposed to talk about the ordinance was talked about in the video that he just played. So didn't he open the door? Like, now we can talk about the ordinance.
100%.
And she was pissed. And then she kind of like made it seem like, like, oh, okay. Like she kind of tried to make it seem like she just completely ignored what I said. And then made it seem like she felt bad or something, or like she was going to be lenient. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll let this in. As if she didn't have to. Like she was doing us a favor.
Unbelievable. She was a snake, that one. Like I said, people probably seen that one with me talking back and forth with her, and she kept trying to twist it. And,
Yeah.
She was a slippery one.
Right. She said this isn't a public forum. And you said, is this not like a public?
It is public. And that was the whole joke, the whole thing. She kept contradicting herself. And then I press her, and then she'd flip flop multiple times. But yeah, so that is absolutely fascinating. And so they come back and they had a couple questions while they were deliberating, and then tell us about the moment of the verdict and all that, how you felt, what you thought was going to happen. What did you think was going to happen?
I felt like she was not giving them any choice but to find us guilty based on the directions that she gave them, based on
So
how she set it up.
I felt like it was a 50-50 chance. I wasn't sure what way it was going to go.
So coin flip, and then what did you
And they
think,
said not
Shannon?
guilty.
90%.
I was going to be happy if it took them a little while to deliberate. I was going to be happy if it seemed like one or two were kind of pulling towards our side. So I was just completely blown away and stunned.
They did come back maybe about 15 minutes before the verdict to say that only one of them disagreed with the rest of them. And so she read them some case law, Rodriguez, something. And what was part of it? Part of it implied if you are one juror holding out on an acquittal, like maybe search inside yourself and see why everybody else feels a different way than you. Like it was
Right.
so like manipulative and like bullying and brainwashing and mind controlling.
But Catherine,
But,
I remember when she said, when she was it her or the bailiff that was reading some statement, like they're locking them in the room and you can't come out, the jurors, and we're like, this is intense.
Oh yeah, the two court officers bringing them to their deliberation room have to take an oath and swear to not let them out of the room, or like I don't even remember what they said, but I was like, whoa,
It was
that
intense.
was intense. Like, they have to keep them locked in a room. They have to swear to keep them locked in a room.
Yep, they can't come out until they make a decision. And so they did come out, and
Every single person from the DA's office came into the courtroom for the verdict, and it was like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
The courthouse.
oh yeah,
was
they all
closed.
wanted to know. It was the talk of the town,
The
I'm
courthouse
sure.
was closed, and then all of a sudden, the whole courtroom's packed.
Especially
And
because you
it's
guys
on.
were pro se, right? You just fired, so
Yeah.
everybody's like, "Oh, these crazy ladies, they just fired. They're going down." I'm telling you, we gotta go watch this.
Yeah.
They were excited to see us be embarrassed. I wouldn't have been embarrassed if we did get a guilty verdict. I mean,
Right.
it would have been discouraging. It would have been upsetting that people don't clearly see what's happening here. But I mean, we did the best we could with what we had.
Well, you guys, so obviously we all know they came down with not guilty.
And the point is,
And what happened at that moment? What was there, like an exasperation in the room? Did people, or was
there
it
was
just
a little
silent?
bit of an applause because we had supporters there. So our people clapped for us, and the judge told them basically shut up, of course. But I mean, that's the thing, though, is that if you look at the elements of the law that this jury is given on what they're supposed to base their decision on, then we would have been guilty, right? But the point is that we were doing a First Amendment protected activity. So that law is not supposed to apply. No law is supposed to apply to a constitutionally protected right. So that's the thing. And there are no jury instructions that tell these people that you don't have to make your decision based off of the elements of the law.
So we were very, very lucky to have some critical thinkers in there. They asked for the law, show us the actual law, and then she's like, disregard the ordinance. And they're like, hey, was anyone ever fined under the ordinance? So we're very lucky, right? Because these were not people that were being led by their nose, right?
it's different in Mass because you guys got a jury trial. You guys get a jury trial for everything. But what is it, a 6-man and then a 12-man? Because in New Hampshire, you don't get a jury trial for Class A misdemeanors and violations.
That was one of my points. I said, an observant person would realize that something like this is a low-level offense because it brings with it a ticket. This would, if we're found guilty, if we're convicted, it's what is it, Catherine? $150 ticket. So the fact is, they've brought us to court repeatedly for 2 years for a petty, low-level offense, and now they have us on trial, right? And then they objected, and they had a whole thing about that. But this is the thing. This shouldn't have gone. There were so many reasons this shouldn't have gone. Frank, we had no accuser to face.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that. We never touched on that. So you guys brought that up about no witnesses, no accuser.
Well, two people that were there to like support us to watch the whole thing play out, that were in, the seats behind us, at different times had stood up and yelled out and had to be escorted out of the courtroom at the end, because when we were doing our closing arguments, Shannon was giving her closing argument, and the DA kept objecting every other word she said, and then he goes to give his closing argument. He gets like halfway through it, and we object to something.
He started talking about the 911 calls that weren't part of the trial.
Yeah, he never brought in any 911 calls to the evidence because he couldn't bring in 911 calls because there were 2 of them. And both of those 911 calls, the person was anonymous, and they said, "I'm just calling because of the ordinance."
I was told to
weren't
call
disturbed.
a report. I was calling a report when somebody protests.
Yeah. And so he starts saying all of these things that just like aren't true or didn't happen or that he showed no evidence of. And so me and Shannon just start objection. And the judge is telling us no more objections. Sit down. Like what? Yeah. So then somebody stands up and is like, you should be removed from the bench and like saying some stuff. So she removes the jury from the room, has him escorted out, brings the jury back in, and then not even 2 minutes later, another guy stands up and says, "You don't even have a witness here to say that they were disturbed. Like, there's no victim. There's nobody here to say that they were disturbed." And again, she removes the jury. She has that guy escorted out and then brings the jury back in. The jury's like going back and forth. And I think that also helped a lot. The 2 disruptions
Probably.
that happened.
100%. The jury, the outburst.
It put extra emphasis on the fact that the Commonwealth had no witness. Nobody there to say they were disturbed.
Something to point out to people. They weren't arrested. They weren't held in contempt. They were just escorted out for the outburst, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So I guarantee that is something that's going to push people to be like, whoa, somebody in the, is making a big deal. And so that's why being quiet and being nice is not going to get you anywhere. That probably is what won you guys the not guilty verdicts, in my opinion. Like, they're like, wow. I mean, there's obviously a lot to it.
That's what I said.
Right?
I said, I think that was a crucial moment. I think that that's what did it, is those 2 guys shouting out.
Making these points that everybody else was thinking.
People honestly underestimate how impactful and powerful it is. One, to have bodies in the courtroom, even if they're not going to make any noise, even if they're not going to speak out, it's so impactful for there to be a crowd and eyes on the judge. And
I would say making noise is important because that's why you guys were targeted and arrested outside Wu's house, because they didn't want that type of stuff from happening. They don't want people to go up. This is because what if everyone in the room stood up all at once in the courtroom and was like, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down.
Yeah, it definitely is important to make noise. It's always important to make a scene, but the majority of people don't feel comfortable doing that.
I do think it was pretty much us 100%, you know, like we have been ourselves this whole time. I think that's what was genuine. I think that's what got the results, you know. It was messy. It was I would trail off. I'd forget what I was saying. I was struck down. I couldn't ask the question. They
She
objected.
goes, hold on. During her closing argument, she goes, she's looking at the jury and she's like, about the DA. He says that the woman in the street was disturbed. Maybe she was, but I don't know that because she's not here.
So it's just the culmination of 2 years of crazy. You know, it never should have proceeded. We never should have been put in handcuffs. You don't have a victim. You don't have a witness. You don't have on and on and on and on, right? Our people have this feeling, they have this belief. Almost everybody knows that lawyers are liars and crooks and they can't be trusted. That's a general feeling. And people think that the system is corrupt. But for some reason, people expect the right thing to happen or come out. So I'm just like, I don't understand how you, because people were saying to us, yeah, I always knew it was going to work out.
Oh, yeah. That's why I didn't show up. I knew you guys were going to be good.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
We've been captive for 2 years. They've threatened several times for, you know, contempt of court that we would be locked up, which was always something cute that they wanted to do. And I was just tired of being threatened all the time, you know? And I said, I can't have this constantly going on. So for me, that's why I wanted to lose the attorney, because the attorney seemed to always have something else that thought that should be done and had to take more time to be done. And I said, I'm expired. Time's up. I can't do anymore. So whatever it is, just bring it. I always just felt like if they were going to find us guilty, which they were hell-bent on doing, then I can just do that myself then. Just let me out of this roller coaster from hell. You know, it was a nightmare. I'm glad, you know, the result. I'm completely blown away, but it's good to have it done.
I bet. It's got to be a great relief. And so to sum up, what's the plan now? Are you guys considering, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but are you considering any sort of civil action or anything, litigation? Obviously, it's pretty like this was just a week ago, and you can't do it yourself.
I mean, right. We're still not attorneys, even though we had a little victory. We're still not attorneys. So,
and so if there's any attorneys watching, would you be interested in talking to them if they're interested in taking the case for going after the woo and all that? I'm just curious because I've had people reach out. I tell them email.
If it was the right fit.
So you hear that, folks. If it's the right fit, if you're not going to be a bootlicker like some attorneys, I'll be nice, out there, you know, you can email me at absolutedefiance@protonmail, and I can vet you and put you in touch with, they think somebody thinks you guys are far superior attorneys. I appreciate that. Free. I don't know who's that person. Carrie, this is just the beginning. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's early, but I think you guys should consider it. You have time. Maybe call around. We'll see if anybody emails. I will let them know and put y'all in touch. And because that's the real way to make them pay and make the process, the punishment for them in civil court, and then make case law as well to prohibit these things and protect it from happening again. Because case law is the most important thing, which is only really generated through appeals and civil suits. So something to consider. Just throwing it out there. And I think it's a worthy cause. And I want to congratulate you guys, both of you, for being fearless and having the courage having the courage to get over your fear, because you obviously weren't fearless. No one's really truly fearless. We have the courage to move beyond that fear, right? And do what needs to be done. It's either fight or flight, one or the other, or maybe you freeze it like one of those fainting goats. But fighting is going to be your best opportunity of survival, right? And so, is there anything else you guys want to say as we wrap it up? And thank everybody for watching, and thank you, Catherine, for helping me with this StreamYard thing. I've never done this before. I think it worked.
Yeah. We're live on my Facebook, your Facebook, my YouTube, and your YouTube.
Not
Okay, awesome. Excellent. So yeah, fascinating tale. This stuff, the whole thing is crazy, and how it all like coincides in so many different ways. It's just mind-boggling how this stuff happens, and then nobody cares. Nobody cares. Where's the articles? How many articles were written? How many were written about the crazy anti-vax protesters outside these politicians' houses? And then when we're all found not guilty,
nobody gives a shit.
They set the First Amendment to 12 hours and nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
And now Michelle Wu is pregnant.
Oh.
She just announced yesterday. What a coincidence, right?
They say.
Yeah.
They say.
She's pregnant.
Yeah, I bet, Well, isn't she one of those we'll not delve down that road, but will she keep it? Will she get rid of it before 6 months? I don't know how you guys got it there in mass.
I mean, we have a statewide campaign going right now. There's billboards all over the place that say, avoid anti-abortion centers.
Avoid anti-abortion centers.
We don't have them, but they are in Massachusetts.
What the hell is it? I know. I never heard of an anti-abortion center.
It's a state campaign that they did all around Massachusetts. Those signs are everywhere. And even on YouTube commercials.
Oh yeah. I'm sure she advocates for it and she's all about it, but she's probably not the type that would get one herself.
Right, which most people aren't.
Because it's about population control of the poor people, the poor, ignorant people like us. I'm just an ordinary working man. I know you guys are like moms, right? Taking care of children. I don't know anything, but yeah, I work. I worked all day today, and Jesus. So I guess we can wrap it up. And I do want to thank you both for your time in doing this. I think it was important for people to know about, especially my viewers, to kind of get closure on the previous content on the channel and how all this stuff ties in together and how you can represent yourself successfully pro se, and it's the best form in of representation. And I've never been successful more than when I went pro se.
Right.
Crazy.
Me either, actually, because this is my second time.
So it's funny how that works when they never want you to do it yourself, and then when you don't, and the lawyer represents your interest, they never represent the things that you want them to or ask them to. So it's really makes a good case. Yeah, don't fuck with the moms for real, especially Boston moms. They're no joke. Yeah. They don't play games. They'll be out there with the rhythm in the soul, banging on pots and pans.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
No, I appreciate it. Teamwork makes the dream work, and we'll see what happens if there's ever another pandemic. But the fight is not over. It's just morphing it's morphing into, I don't even know what to call what is happening right now other than the Twilight Zone on acid. It's really everything. I thought it was crazy before, but now with the more recent events, it's only going to escalate from here. So everybody be careful. Make sure you got beans and bullets and clean water, and all that stuff, and get ready for blackouts and craziness.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't. I messed it up.
Well,
So yeah, it's getting late. Good night. I got to get up for work in the morning too. I still got to cook something to eat.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Stay strapped, kids. That's right.
All right.
Strapped with the pots and pans.
Bye.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
All right.